What happens when a lively conversation suddenly turns into an unexpected debate? Before we jump in, make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The hosts welcome the audience with the usual energy as applause fills the studio. Welcome back, everyone, the moderator says with a smile. We're excited because our next guest has been winning over audiences with another standout performance. Please welcome Betty Gilpin. The audience applauds as Betty walks onto the stage, greeting each host before taking her seat. Sunny Hostin smiles. It's great to have you here. Thank you, Betty replies. I'm happy to be here. The conversation begins with Betty discussing her latest project, the challenges of balancing dramatic and comedic roles, and what she's learned throughout her career. Joy comments, "You've built a reputation for taking on complicated characters." Betty laughs. "I think imperfect people are always more interesting. Nobody wakes up every morning with all the answers." Sunny nods. "That's true, although public figures often feel pressure to speak with certainty." "I think that's part of the challenge," Betty answers. "Sometimes audiences expect certainty when the honest answer is that people are still learning." The audience murmurs in agreement. Sunny leans forward. "Do you think celebrities have a responsibility to use their platforms when major social issues come up?" Betty pauses for a second before answering. "I think everyone has a responsibility to be thoughtful. But I also think it's okay to admit when you're still listening instead of rushing to have the perfect opinion." Sunny nods politely. "But isn't silence sometimes part of the problem?" Betty smiles respectfully. "It can be, but speaking without understanding can also become part of the problem." Several audience members applaud. Sunny continues. "So you're saying waiting can sometimes be the better choice?" "I'm saying humility matters," Betty replies. "People sometimes confuse having a microphone with having expertise." Another round of applause follows. Sunny responds carefully. "I understand that. At the same time, viewers often look to public figures because they have influence." "They do," Betty agrees. "Influence should encourage responsibility, not certainty." The moderator notices the audience reacting to nearly every exchange. "I think we're already getting a fascinating discussion." Everyone laughs. Sunny continues. "I've always believed difficult conversations require people to take clear positions." Betty nods. "And I respect that." She pauses. "I also think people can disagree without assuming bad intentions." The audience applauds again. Sunny smiles. "That's easier said than done these days." "I completely agree," Betty says. "It feels like we've reached a point where disagreement is immediately treated as disrespect." Sunny folds her hands. "But what if someone's opinion causes real harm?" "I think intent and impact both deserve discussion," Betty answers. "Neither should automatically erase the other." The audience grows quieter. The moderator looks between them. "I have a feeling we're just getting started." Sunny smiles. "So do I." Betty laughs softly. "I was afraid you might say that." The audience laughs with her, easing the tension for a moment. Sunny continues. "I appreciate that you're willing to engage. Some guests try to avoid conversations like this." "I don't mind hard questions," Betty replies. "I only hope everyone, including me, gets room to finish their thoughts." The audience applauds once more. The moderator smiles. "That's a fair request." Sunny nods. "It is." She looks toward Betty. "So let's keep going." The audience settles in, sensing that the discussion is about to move beyond friendly introductions into a deeper conversation where differing perspectives will be tested with respect, careful questions, and honest disagreement. The moderator smiles as the applause fades. "I think this is exactly the kind of conversation viewers enjoy because everyone is coming at it from a different perspective." Sunny nods. "I agree, but I want to dig a little deeper because you mentioned humility. Sometimes people hear that and think it's an excuse for avoiding difficult conversations." Betty answers calmly. "I understand why someone could see it that way. I just think there's a difference between avoiding a conversation and taking time to understand it." Sunny responds almost immediately. "But when an issue affects real people, waiting can feel like a luxury they don't have." Several audience members applaud. Betty acknowledges them with a nod. "That's a fair point. I'm not saying people should stay silent forever. I'm saying people should recognize the limits of what they know." Joy jumps in. "Maybe we're talking about timing." Sunny looks over. "What do you mean?" Joy continues. "Some people process information by speaking through it. Others process it by listening first." Betty smiles. "Exactly." Sunny says, But television isn't always patient. Audiences want answers. They do, Betty replies. Sometimes they deserve them. Other times they deserve honesty more than certainty. A few audience members clap. Sunny keeps the conversation moving. So if someone asked you today about an issue you hadn't fully researched, what would you say? Betty doesn't hesitate. I'd say I don't know enough yet, but I'm listening. Sunny raises an eyebrow. You really think people would accept that? I don't know. The audience laughs. But I think it's healthier than pretending. The moderator smiles. That may be one of the most honest answers we've heard. Sunny nods politely. I appreciate honesty. I also think public influence comes with responsibility. It absolutely does, Betty agrees. But responsibility also includes being careful with words. Sunny leans forward. So where's the line? I don't think it's one line. It's different for every situation. The audience listens quietly. Sunny says, that sounds reasonable, but people watching at home often want clarity. Betty responds, I understand that. I just don't think every complicated issue can fit into a 30-second answer. Several audience members applaud. Joy laughs. That's probably the truest thing said today. The audience joins in. Sunny smiles. You're making my job difficult. Betty laughs. I promise that's not intentional. The moderator steps in. Let me ask something a little different. She turns to Betty. Has your perspective changed over the years? Absolutely. In fact, I hope it keeps changing. Sunny asks, why? Because meeting different people changes you. Reading changes you. Life changes you. If my opinions never evolved, I'd probably stop growing. The audience applauds warmly. Sunny nods. I can respect that. She pauses before adding. I also think some values shouldn't change. I agree, Betty says. Kindness, respect, curiosity. They've always mattered. Sunny smiles. So maybe we're closer in our thinking than viewers realize. Betty laughs. Maybe. Joy looks toward the audience. Well, there goes everyone's expectation of a dramatic argument. The audience laughs loudly. Sunny grins. Don't celebrate yet. Everyone laughs again. Sunny continues. I still want to challenge one thing. Betty nods. I'm listening. You've talked about listening several times today. Do you think people spend enough time listening to views they disagree with? Betty considers the question. Honestly, no. I think we're all becoming more comfortable talking than listening. Sunny says, that includes television. The moderator smiles knowingly. She's not wrong. The audience applauds. Betty continues. And I include myself in that. I've interrupted people. I've misunderstood people. I've been convinced I was right and later realized I wasn't. Sunny nods slowly. I think everyone has. For a brief moment, the conversation becomes noticeably calmer. Then Sunny asks one more question. But when someone says something you believe is deeply harmful, how much patience should you have? The audience grows quiet again. Betty takes a measured breath. I think you challenge the idea. You protect the people affected. But you also remember there's another human being across from you. The audience responds with a thoughtful round of applause. Sunny looks at Betty for a moment before replying. I don't know that everyone will agree with that. Betty smiles gently. I wouldn't expect them to. The moderator glances toward the audience as the room buzzes with quiet reactions. You can feel everyone thinking about that answer. Sunny nods. And that's what good conversations are supposed to do. The audience applauds as the discussion prepares to move into even more challenging questions. The applause fades, and the moderator smiles as the audience settles back into their seats. I think one thing that's become clear is that this conversation isn't really about one issue. It's about how we talk to each other. Betty nods. I think that's exactly right. Sunny looks toward her. Then let me ask you something that gets to the heart of it. Do you ever worry that emphasizing understanding can unintentionally make people feel their experiences are being questioned? Betty considers the question for a moment. I do. And that's why listening matters. If someone tells me they've been hurt, my first response shouldn't be to argue with them. It should be to understand what they're saying. Several audience members applaud. Sunny responds. I appreciate that answer. But eventually there comes a point where people have to make decisions. They have to say what they believe. They can't always stay in the middle. Betty nods. I agree. I just don't think every disagreement has only two sides. Joy smiles. That's probably the hardest message to get across on television. The audience laughs. Sunny joins in. You're not wrong. She turns back toward Betty. Viewers often want someone to be clearly right and someone else to be clearly wrong. Betty smiles politely. Real conversations rarely work that way. The moderator says. Yet social media often rewards exactly that. A ripple of applause moves through the audience. Sunny says, "That's true. You can have a 40-minute discussion, and someone clips 15 seconds. Betty laughs. And suddenly that's your entire personality. The audience laughs with her. Joy adds, or your entire career. More laughter follows. Sunny smiles before becoming serious again. Do you ever read the comments afterward? Betty laughs quietly. Less than I used to. Why? Because eventually I realize strangers often know only a tiny piece of who you are. The audience applauds. Sunny nods thoughtfully. I've learned something similar. You can't spend your life trying to answer every opinion. Betty smiles. Exactly. But you should always stay open to sincere criticism. Sunny says, that's an important distinction. The moderator notices the audience reacting. I think people appreciate hearing two people disagree without talking over each other. Joy laughs. Don't compliment us too early. Everyone laughs. Sunny smiles. We're trying. The moderator asks another question. Has there ever been a moment when someone completely changed your mind? Betty nods immediately. Many times. The older I get, the less embarrassed I am to admit that. Sunny asks, really? Absolutely. I think changing your mind after learning something new is a strength. Several audience members clap. Sunny says, I can respect that. But I also believe there are moments when conviction matters. There are. Betty agrees. The challenge is knowing the difference. The audience grows quiet again. Sunny leans back in her chair. I expected this interview to go in a very different direction. Betty smiles. So did I. The audience laughs. Sunny continues. I thought we'd spend most of the time talking about acting. Betty laughs. We probably should. Joy says. Too late now. Everyone laughs again. The moderator looks toward Betty. Does performing ever help you understand people with completely different viewpoints? It does. As an actor, your job isn't to judge a character. It's to understand why they believe what they believe. Sunny asks, has that changed how you approach real life? I think so. It's made me slower to assume motives. The audience applauds. Sunny nods slowly. I wish more public conversations made room for that. Betty smiles. So do I. For a brief moment, neither speaks. The silence is calm rather than uncomfortable. The audience notices it too. The moderator finally breaks it with a smile. I think everyone expected fireworks. Joy laughs. And instead they got reflection. Sunny smiles. I don't mind that. She turns toward Betty one last time. We may not agree on every point. Betty nods. I wouldn't expect us to. But I appreciate that you answered every question directly. And I appreciate that you asked them respectfully, Betty replies. The audience responds with one of the loudest rounds of applause of the conversation. As the applause continues, the moderator looks toward the cameras. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll hear some questions inspired by viewers and continue this fascinating discussion. The audience applauds once more as the conversation pauses, leaving viewers wondering how the discussion will be received once the cameras stop rolling. The show returns from break to a warm round of applause as the moderator thanks everyone for staying with the discussion. I think today's conversation proves that people can disagree without turning disagreement into disrespect. Betty smiles. I hope that's what people take away. Sunny nods. So do I. She looks toward Betty one last time. We approached this conversation from different perspectives, but I appreciate that you stayed engaged. Betty responds with a smile. And I appreciate thoughtful questions. Conversations like this should challenge everyone involved, including me. The audience applauds. Joy laughs. I think we've all learned something today. The moderator turns toward the audience. That's one of the reasons conversations like these matter. Several audience members stand to applaud. Sunny joins them with a smile. I know viewers won't agree with everything that was said today. Betty nods. I wouldn't expect them to. What matters is that people keep talking and listening. The audience applauds once again. The moderator thanks Betty for joining the program. It's been a pleasure having you with us. Thank you for inviting me, Betty replies. The hosts exchange smiles as the segment comes to a close. The audience gives one final standing ovation before the cameras fade out. In this fictional story, viewers immediately begin discussing the conversation online. Some praise the respectful exchange and say it showed that two people can challenge one another without raising their voices. Others say they connected more with Sunny's emphasis on speaking out, while many say Betty's comments about listening before speaking gave them something to think about. Entertainment commentators imagine how a conversation like this might spark broader discussions about public discourse, respectful disagreement, and the role of celebrities in social conversations. Across the fictional reactions, one theme appears again and again. Viewers appreciate seeing a discussion where neither person is portrayed as a winner or loser. Backstage, the hosts and Betty are imagined sharing a friendly conversation before heading their separate ways. They thank one another for the discussion, exchange a few laughs about how unpredictable live television can be, and leave with mutual respect despite their different viewpoints. The moderator closes the episode with a smile. That's all the time we have today. Thanks to our audience here in the studio and everyone watching at home. The audience applauds one final time. And to everyone watching this story on the Star Talks, we'd love to hear what you think. Share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the Star Talks for more talk show-inspired stories and discussions.